Hello, friends, and welcome to the Everyday Educator, where we explore the beauty, challenges, and timeless truths of classical home education. I'm your host, Kelli Wilt, and today we're doing something just a little bit different and a whole lot of fun. I have here one of my dearest friends, Lisa Bailey, who longtime listeners may recognize as one of the amazing co hosts of this podcast. And in addition to being the mom of two homeschool graduates, she also currently serves as Classical Conversations Multimedia's Director of Program Development and Support and has recently co-authored the book Scribblers at Home, among her many other contributions to CC Multimedia. With over 2 decades of seasoned homeschool experience, I think you will agree with me. She is just the right guest for this episode. So
Oh,
I already
that's
have
so
alluded.
fun. That's
I've
so fun,
alluded.
Kelli. I never get to be on this end. And so I dressed today. I put my glasses on so people could tell that I'm the guest and not the host. And so
Love it.
um, that's just really fun. I think about all the things that you said and think, well, I would like to talk to that person. And I forget that I am that person. And I don't know if I'm just the person to answer your questions or not. I may be the person to answer your questions just because surely I have seen it. And all those 2 decades, surely I have seen it if I haven't lived it myself, but we'll see.
Well, I have to tell you, listeners, Lisa Bailey is one of my dearest friends, and she is also one of my closest mentors, and she is a fountain of wisdom. So I've already alluded to the fact that we're doing something a little different today. We have opened up Classical Conversations social media channels to uncover your biggest questions about homeschooling, classical methods, curriculum choices, and everything in between. Today, we are diving in. So, whether you are new to classical education or you are a seasoned home educator looking for maybe some fresh perspective,
That's right. Some new
this episode
idea,
is for
somebody
you.
else's idea.
That's right. So, we are going to jump right in and get started. So,
Awesome.
Lisa, I love this first question.
Oh,
Um,
gosh.
it is singing songs for memory work requires technology. How do no technology homes do it?
Okay. This makes me laugh in my spirit just a little bit because Kelly alluded to I've been doing this for 2 decades. In 2004, when my family joined a classical conversations community for the first time, I had a second grader and a fifth grader, um, and the the songs were much different, okay? And they were set to tunes that we knew. I mean, we just took, you know, the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star tune or they were to tunes that you knew. So, you didn't really have to have somebody singing in your ear in order to get the tune and learn the words. And so we did not worry about the technology aspect of it. We just sang the little songs how we wanted to in whatever key occurred to us at our kitchen table. And so as my girls got out of foundations, things got more sophisticated. And there were, CDs and now there are memory work apps that you can get. You can download wherever you get your Apple products, you can download our songs. And so a lot of people do like to practice their memory work through technology. But I'm here to tell you it does not have to be through technology. You can just sing the songs a cappella, and you can look up what a cappella means with your family. Or I have lots of friends who they would say, we don't sing. We don't we don't moms or dads who would say, "Nope, I draw the line. I'm not singing those songs." Or sometimes there are students who are just like, "Yeah, I don't wanna sing that, mom." So you can practice the memory work and not sing the song. And maybe your child just learns the tunes in community day, you know? So I don't want anybody to think that you are leading a second class memory work life if you don't sing. Kelly, what's been your experience? Now, I know that you are very musical and you have a delightful voice. And I bet all your kids, now my kids loved to sing, but they love to make up their own songs. And so, what would you say if somebody said, "Can I do this without the songs?"
Well, I think my answer would be similar to yours. I'm chuckling, thinking back through my CC annals of memory. And when we first joined Classical Conversations, we had a similar experience. And somehow I think, I realized at that point that Foundations Community Day was basically a feast of memory
Oh, yeah.
techniques. And so there were some things that we would sing, there were other things we would chant, we would clap, we would stomp, we would move our bodies. And as a parent, I would study my children closely on Community Day to see what they responded to.
Right. Are they singers or
Yeah.
is that just leaving them cold? And I know, like my kids, they believed they weren't right, y'all, but they believed that they were the last human children in the world without technology. Like they didn't have their own computer. When we started, there was no such thing as iPads, and I had a cell phone, but they didn't have cell phones till could drive, and so that was not a deal. But and many parents now are navigating that whole social media world and that whole technology world and are opting for their children not to have screens or not to have devices or access to them at all hours. But if you are a parent who has a phone, you can access the memory work on your phone with our apps, and you can access those songs without having your family be inundated with technology.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as a parent, you are still very much in control of
Absolutely.
what your children are utilizing as memory tools. And I think my advice would be to just study your children, find out how they best commit things to memory, and have fun helping them to memorize. And should technology not be something that you put on your plate from the memory work buffet on Community Day, then that definitely is your personal choice. Just as if I were standing in line beside you, Lisa, in a buffet, I'm certainly not going to put food on your plate.
That's right. That's exactly right. And we having the memory work be part of your homeschool experience is not the same thing as having the memory work through technology. It is a choice, like you were saying, in how you will take it in and how you'll practice it. My kids didn't really get into the singing of it. They liked to draw it. They were into hieroglyphics, and so they would make one of mine especially would make symbols and hold up. She would draw pictures and hold up the card, and her sister had to figure out the memory work from the card. So we did all kinds of things that didn't involve singing or technology. So
Right. Right. I love it. I love it. You just never know how your children are going to creatively latch on to ways to
that's right.
memorize. So
That's right.
capitalize on their enthusiasm and their curiosity and have fun.
Yep.
That would be my
Yes.
answer.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, our next question is super well timed because as we're recording this podcast, lots of communities are gearing up for a new year. Foundation students, a new cycle. Challenge students, perhaps a new program. And so this next question is what, and maybe it's not as well timed, but can definitely be helpful for the coming seasons. What should I be doing to prepare over the summer to set up for a successful year? Now, Lisa, I'm curious to your answer because I'm telling you, friend, I have done this badly in the
Oh
past.
my word. That's how we can have a good answer because we lived it badly. I've had people before say, "Oh, I just wish I did think I mean my children, I wish my children could have you." And I'm like, "No. My children did not have me either because I made all my mistakes on my children so that now I can tell you how you should do it with your children. Because sometimes the way I did it with my kids did not really work. Yeah, I did summer poorly um, a lot, and I did summer well a lot. I will grant myself that. How can you prepare for the summer so that you set up a successful year? Some of the preparation that you are going to do as the parent, as the lead learner in your home, has to do with getting yourself ready. So stop worrying about how you're going to position your child to get ready. I don't know how they're ever going to be able to get up on time, or I don't know how they're ever going to keep their work straight. Don't worry about them yet. You got to get yourself straight. How can I prepare and set us up? How can changing what I do for myself set our whole family up for a successful year? I would say pray a lot. And that, I'm not kidding. I mean, you really do need to pray a lot and ask the Lord for wisdom. It's not just, Lord, give me patience. Don't pray, Lord, give me patience, because the way to build patience is to have it tested. And so if you ask for patience, then you're going to have it tested. So ask for wisdom. Lord, give me wisdom. Help me see both the needs of each of my children and help me see the reality of where they are, not where I thought they were, not where I wish they were, not where in a perfect situation I hoped that they would be, but where are they really? And ask for wisdom about your children and how they learn and what other stretches and stresses and stretches are going on in their lives, and what will be going on in their lives. If you've got a child who has just signed up to play a travel sport, you need to think about all of the things that are going to be a call on that child's time and a call on your family's time so that you don't set yourself up for disappointment. Don't plan the ideal situation when you don't have an ideal life. You have aging parents, or you're moving, or somebody in your house is having surgery, or somebody is coming for an extended visit. Um, that's not an ideal situation. And so if you set up an ideal plan, that's from the beginning not compatible. I would look at having a date with each of your children, you know, um, a date where you take them somewhere that they like to be, and it is a very low key time to talk to them about what are they excited about in the next year. What in a perfect world, daughter, what would you love this year to look like? Um, what are you worried about or anxious about? What are you uncomfortable with or confused about? It may be something to do with academics, but it might not be. But everything plays in to the year that you're going to have. Um, so I would interview them. Ask your child, what are they excited about? What are they fearful of? What do they anticipate that they want more help with? What do they think they want to fly solo on? Um, Ask them, what's the best way for me to support you? Sometimes what we as the parent think, especially as our children get older, what we think they need is not the same thing that they think they need. And it's not always the same thing they need. Um, we always joke about we're working ourselves out of a job, but many of us don't want to give up the job. You know, I loved my girls being little, and I loved being needed, and I loved being all up in what they were learning, because that meant that I could go back to playing in that, in learning more and redeeming my own education. But as they got older, they did not always want me not just shoulder to shoulder, but not even looking over their shoulder at every turn. So have a conversation. What are you comfortable with and what am I comfortable with? And let's find our starting rhythm. It's probably not going to be our ending rhythm because we'll both discover that we were right and wrong about some of that. But we can try just asking your student up front, especially as they get older. Um, and then when they're really young, that time can be you hearing what they're excited about and hearing what they're fearful of and telling them what your expectations will be and how you will meet them there. Set some goals together. Set some family learning goals and individual learning goals. And the more that you bring them into it, the more they will own it. And we had years where we actually made covenants together, family covenants. I will do this and you will do that. I promise you this, mama. I promise you this, daughter. Um, and it was a covenant together. It was something that we did together before the Lord. And then, Kelly, there's the boring stuff that doesn't have anything to do with academics, but honestly has a huge amount to do with how successful your year will be. It's the household things. Like, I mean, what are we going to have for dinner on community day? Or heaven forbid on the night before community day when we're all running around like crazy people because we didn't keep to our covenant or our schedule or whatever. How are you going to, your children are not as, free to do their chores whenever they want to. And so you're going to have to find the rhythm of chores. A household rhythm of chores is really good. It's good to start in the summer to look and think, oh, wow. We've got soccer on Monday and scouts on Tuesday and church on Wednesday. And, Thursday is free, but Friday we've got away ball games and Saturday we have a whole day of chores. And then we're trying to it's good to just see that rhythm. And frankly, to plan some Saturdays that are nothing but fun, that are nothing but rest. I don't know. That's probably a lot. Those are things to think about in the summer so that you can set yourself up for success. Otherwise, you're always running to get ahead of that. It's like the Indiana Jones. Would you rather be running right in front of that ball, right? Or would you rather have planned knowing you what you need to avoid and how you can navigate better?
Right.
That's just a
Oh,
thought.
there's so many good ideas. I hope if you're listening, you had a notepad and you were just gleaning wisdom because there's so much goodness and truth in what you said, Lisa. And I think you hit on something really important. There are multiple elements to preparing for a
Yes.
successful community year.
Yes.
And it makes me think about the story of Lazarus' sisters, Mary and Martha,
Yes.
and their posture before Jesus when he would come and be a guest in their home, and how Mary would sit at his feet, and how Martha, as a very diligent, super prepared, probably laminating all the things
Oh,
and making lots
scurrying.
of
That's
photocopies.
right. That's right. Everybody had a schedule and an agenda.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, how she would look at Mary with frustration because she was very busy. And
Right.
then she went to Jesus and said, basically, and this is a paraphrased version, but Jesus, like, do you see her? She is
I
not
mean,
helping me. And how Jesus looked at her with compassion. I
right.
think because he recognized Martha was doing her best. She was doing all of the quote unquote right things.
Right. To make everybody have a great time.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Mary's heart posture was bowed before the Lord. And I think as a homeschool parent preparing for the year, we have to make sure that there are elements of both. We cannot be 100% Martha. We can be 100% Mary, but like you said, there are some things we have to think about and give time and energy to. And so I think it's good for us to be mindful that there are multiple roles to fulfill in preparing for successful years. So, like I said, if you're listening, I hope you are writing these tips down. Lots of good gleaning there.
One thing that I didn't say that I really want to emphasize, use some of your summer to begin building community. Because the thing that makes classical conversations so different is the community. And it begins, community begins at home. Your your first and closest community is your family. And so do some things to build fellowship and communion within your family. Do some things that will give you shared memories and common happy thoughts, that will give you an appreciation for the strengths of one another and your little community, so that you really will feel like partners when the academic year starts. But also reach out to other people. Encourage your students to make friends with people who will be part of their classical conversations community. You can do things like having play dates at the park or inviting kids to your home, but you can also do things like reading one of the challenge books during the summer as a book club. That makes it fun. Summer reading when you are eating popsicles on the back porch or making a model after you read. You can make Milo's car after you read Phantom Tollbooth. Those are the kinds of things that build common memories, but build community, because that is what makes CC really sweet.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that. So good.
Yeah.
All right, we've already alluded to this next question just a smidge,
Okay.
but I
Okay.
want us to explore it a little more fully. You mentioned that you went through a season where you watched your daughters grow from wanting you
Yes.
beside them to maybe having
Yes.
a hand on their shoulder
Right.
to stepping
To-
away and letting them be independent. So our next
yes.
question is, what is the day in the life of a CC mom like when she only has upper level students?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Sometimes it's lonely. Okay. If you are used to doing all the things or being the answer person for all of the things, working your way out of a job can leave you feeling a little bereft sometimes. But it is also um, invigorating to see that your children have absorbed the skills of learning and that they actually have been paying attention when you showed them best practices and showed them how to schedule. Um, Challenge A students still need lots of hand holding. You think that learning how to manage your time and frankly yourself is a skill that just comes as you get taller, but it doesn't though. Some people are wired to be really good at managing, like they make lists and they can see that, oh, this big task is going to take longer than this little task and I should probably break it down. Some people just see that, but lots of 12 and 13 and even 14-year-olds don't have a clue. And so even somebody who is a very eager learner might not be a good planner or a realistic planner at first. Their brains just don't really get that certain things take way longer than they ought to or than they expected. And so if when your child is challenge A and challenge B, you sit down and you help them make a schedule, and then you take your hands off a little bit and let them manage the schedule so that it either helps them or hangs them. Let them feel it. And y'all, I mean, we all are guilty of wanting it all to turn out right for our children, and we want them to like show their best selves in community, partly because that shows our best selves that our children did all the right things. But if you don't ever let the consequences of their actions or inactions bite your children, then they might not learn the lesson in a timely way. The longer you wait to learn that your actions have biting consequences, the bigger the consequences are. And so let them make the mistakes while they're little, and you're there to help give them a hand, pull them out of the ditch, instead of just waiting till they go off to work or off to military service or off to college and let them make a bigger mistake where the stakes are higher and there's nobody to rescue them. So the life of an upper level mom, if mom and dad have done a good job, is kind of like a partner, a learning partner, and an overseer. When my girls got older, um, I wanted to stay in touch. Well, you never take your hand off all the way. And it's not just because you don't trust your children, right? It's because remember what we said a minute ago, the thing that makes classical conversations and classical
Mhm.
education different is relationship. It's
Yes.
community. And so
Yes.
that is the best way for your children to learn is from a loving co-learner or a loving mentor. So you want to stay in touch with what they're learning, and a lot of times I would pick one subject a year with my girls, even as they got older, that I was really going to stay invested with along with them. I know with one of my daughter, I read we she agreed that we could read the challenge for literature together out loud. So we read the Odyssey, we read the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Aeneid, and we read some of these things. Theogony, I had not read. Some things I had read, um, and it was so enriching to do that together. I think we both got more out of than either one of us would have gotten together. I did chemistry with one of my daughters, not as happily as I did the reading. I did advanced math with one of my daughters. And I long now for the days of the math map. I wish it would come back because I think I would love it more if I learned it classically. So the day looked like, oh, and I have to say this, I'm a morning person, and so I desired for the day to start, when the day ought to start, early in the morning. And I had one daughter who did not recognize early in the morning as a real thing. And so I wanted to start my day with prayer with my daughter, but that meant I had to wait till my third cup of coffee when she was awake. But we started together. We started together in a how what are you looking forward to today? What is your biggest challenge today? How can I be of service to you today? And we prayed together. Um, and then I checked in during the day. Do you need me? Do you need a resource? Is there some way in which I can clear the deck for you? Um, there some way in which I can pray for you because you have left undone that which should have been done, and now you're really tired. And then whatever we had elected to do together, I made time for them. The day to day of a CC mom of older students is different. Now, you may be um, studying something on your own, and that is a beautiful example to your students. You may have seen in whatever subject you did with them, you may have discovered some lack, some prerequisite that you didn't get, and maybe you are shoring up your own education. Do it in front of them. Let them see you studying, or let them even see you struggling to learn something that you never learned, because here's what you're teaching them: that life and learning go together. And you don't stop learning because you reach a certain stage in life. That's just a part of the process of what the Lord calls of the joy that the Lord calls us to. That He's always going to reveal something. If we will stay open and interested and curious, we can keep learning. So I would say spend time learning in front of your children. Let them see you struggle and have to go ask for help. Um, I don't know. I remember I loved the little kid years because I liked to be with them. I loved the older years because I loved seeing what the Lord was doing in their lives and how He was growing them into the women that He had always designed them to be. And a lot of times they were women that I didn't recognize. Like, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that God was going to grow you in that way. And wow, that's really beautiful, and in a way that would never have occurred to me. And that's how I know I didn't do it. God did it.
Hey everyone, we want to interrupt this show to tell you more about this semester's sponsor, Judson College. Judson College is an amazing fit for a CC student because they really do focus in on our three uniques: classical, Christian, and community. Listen to their mission statement. They say, equipping students to give their lives for the cause of Christ in the church, among the nations, and in every aspect of society. Let me tell you a little bit about what they mean when they say every aspect of society. I know sometimes we think of a Christian college and we think, okay, you're just teaching me to go into vocational ministry. Well, guess what? We spoke with a representative from Judson College, and he shared with us that it's more than just official ministry. They believe that every believer is equipped and needs to be equipped for ministry wherever their feet land. So whether that means the marketplace or someone's church. Judson College has a wide variety of degrees for students to choose from, including 25 majors as well as 5 years bachelor's to master's programs. And each of these programs are taught by exceptional faculty who are experts in their field and passionate about investing in the lives of their students. They want their students to leave equipped theologically and professionally for whatever career God wants them to pursue. To find out more about what Judson College has to offer, visit judsoncollege.com/distinctives. And again, thank you to Judson College for sponsoring this semester of the Everyday Educator. Let's get back to the show.
I love it. I love it. This is the season that our family is in right now in our homeschooling journey, and I just so much of what you're saying resonates with me because you know, as we began this homeschooling journey, I was so busy. I had
So,
two wiggly
making all
jiggly.
the things and
Oh
staying ahead
yes,
of their little busy bodies.
yes, yes. I had two wiggly jiggly little boys
Yep.
and a little baby girl in a carrier that I took to community our very first day. And my days between community days were very filled with activity. We were reading, we were going, we were doing, we were exploring together. And then almost before I even realized it, we had begun to shift into the next portion of our journey. And suddenly I had an eldest who was growing increasingly more independent. He was in essentials and he was beginning to take dominion over his work and growing in independence. And soon after, his brother began doing the same. And then as they crossed the bridge to begin challenge, there was a sudden awareness that I had that basically we weren't in Kansas anymore, that they had begun to grow, they had begun to change, and that I, as a parent, needed to grow my expectations of what they were capable of, and also my expectations for what homeschool would look like in this new stage. So, now that I've graduated two students from our home through Challenge 4, I have my little baby that was in the carrier our first day.
Who's not a baby at all.
It was,
She's
it was
beautiful.
She's going into Challenge 3 this year, and God has afforded me a wonderful opportunity to be her director in community. So I will get to walk alongside her and have those experiences. But it's a joyful sorrow that I feel because our day does look different. When we start out, she apparently arrived with the same factory settings as your daughter,
Yes, yes.
recognizing mornings beginning quite as early as her mother would wish some days. But our days look like her coming and eating breakfast, pulling open her guide, and talking to me about what she hopes to accomplish that day. And then me asking similar questions to what you've already said. How can I help you today? Is there something that you would like for me to sit with you and work through together and ask good questions? And very thoughtfully, she has taken ownership over her studies as she's entering these last 2 years
Oh, I love it.
of challenge. So I feel like we're reaping the harvest of the good seeds that were sown early as we increased our expectation and followed through with making certain things were done. But that's not to say that, Lisa, we didn't mess up. There were times that I
Oh,
expected too much.
absolutely.
I expected too
There were
much.
times I didn't expect enough.
Exactly, exactly. So I think my answer to this mom would be your days will look different because your interactions with your child will look different. As you increase their independent responsibility. And, one thing that we always do the day after Community Day is sit down together. We pray. We look through the challenge guide for that week. We preview the rhetorical assignments that might be due. And throughout the day, there are little touches. She's very independent. And I think that's also the culmination of her being a baby in our family who's
Right,
watched her
right.
two older
She's
brothers.
seen it before, now she gets to do it. Mhm.
Exactly, exactly. So, it will look different for you. It will look different for you for each of your challenge aged children,
Absolutely.
and hold loosely to your ideal of what it should be and recognize what it needs to be to continue to help them to grow.
Yeah,
So very
that's
good.
beautiful.
This
That's
is what
beautiful.
I wish someone had told me
See, I
when
know,
they were
Kelly.
little. When they were
That's
little.
why is what makes me want to keep sharing through Everyday Educator, because I think, oh, what a sad thing that all these hard knocks I've taken won't do anybody any good if I don't tell, and it does help. I know, um, one of my daughters came to me when she was a senior and she was a little bit sad and she said, "Mama, I sort of miss it." She said, she said, "She needs you more. And so you spend more time with her and I miss it because I don't need you." And it in that moment the Lord gave me the words to say to her, and I said, "Honey, you don't need me in the same way anymore." And I felt like God was speaking to my heart cuz I had mourned that closeness with her. I said, "You don't need me for academic reasons, but you still need me. You still need me. I still have a role for you, and it is okay for you to still want me or need me for something else." The Lord has just ushered us in to a new phase. So, mamas of olders, don't feel like your children don't need you. They just need you for something else.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So true. So true. Well, we've talked about how our home life changes, but sometimes there are different circumstances for us as parents, and how we homeschool. So our next question is reflective of that. This question is: can classical conversations still be feasible for me if I'm a working mom? So maybe my homeschool experience doesn't look like everyone else in community. Can I still do this? What do you think, Lisa?
Um, I have met a lot of parents through the years in a lot of different situations. Part-time, full-time stay-at-home moms, um, moms who have part-time work. I've had lots of moms who were nurses, who were the parents to kids in classes that I tutored, even some moms that worked full-time. Now, I will tell you, um, that anything the Lord has called you to do, if God has called you to do this, He is ready to hold your hand and find the way to do this. And it might look almost impossible, but nothing's impossible with God. If He's laid it on your heart, then He has made a way. And you may have to lift up rocks and look around trees and and ask for be humble enough to ask for help, but the Lord can do it. Practically, it looks different depending on how old your child is. Um, if you feel that the Lord has called you to homeschool and He has called you into a classical Christian education with classical conversations, but you work full time and you're the only parent in the home, or both you and your husband work full time and you have a foundations age student, you have to ask yourself, do I have a parent? Is there a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle who could be with my child on community day? Because foundations communities are not drop off programs. There has to be a loving, caring, plugged in adult with each young learner in community. Um, and so ideally, this is a person who's going to be with your child during the week, during the day when you can't be there. Now, there are some moms who are, like I said before, they work 12-hour shifts. And so maybe some community days they're home and some they're not. You need to make some arrangements for somebody to be your child's in community mom or parent. Um, and then you need to ask yourself the tough questions. Who's going to be home with my child? Um, are we able to set a rhythm, not necessarily a schedule, right? But a rhythm, because it is possible for you to be a practicer of foundations memory work and an explorer of God's wonder in the evening. So you might come home from work and you guys might work on memory work and do science projects and go out and look at the stars at night and do all the kinds of things that moms and dads do in the day. You just might be doing them at night. Um, so the other thing is, if your child is older, does your child have the discipline um, to keep himself or herself on track? With the challenge, the beautiful thing, one of the beautiful things about challenge is that it offers a syllabus. It offers a course guide that will help you and your student know what needs to be covered during the week. It'll tell you what's going to happen and be introduced and wrestled with in community, and then what things need to be accomplished at home. And you and your student make the plan, the rhythm of how that will flow through a week so that they come back to community ready to fully engage in the conversations there. And so you just have to decide, do I have a child who is able to provide the kind of discipline that system requires? And then consider, do you have the bandwidth for conversation with your older student? Because that's part of the wrestling, parents. All of the wrestling doesn't happen in community. That's 1 hour a week for 30 weeks per big bucket or subject. There's no way your child is going to wrestle sufficiently in community. You're going to need to have some bandwidth for discussion and conversation about what they're reading and what they're exploring, what they're discovering, a point of view that came out in community day that they never thought of before, and it just blew their mind. How are you going to help them put their mind back together or reorder their thinking to pry open and accept that new piece of information? You have to decide if you have the bandwidth to do that. But you know what? I totally believe that working parents can be classical educators
Mhm.
and can superintend their students' experience in a CC community. Kelli, you've had lots of
Mhm.
experience with challenge students and you've had foundation students and experience directing those programs. What would you tell a working mom
I
who
think,
desires this?
yeah, it's such a good question because I think the first thing I would tell that mom is to abandon your paradigm of what school looked like for you.
Yeah.
because your
Don't
brain,
bring school home. Do not bring your
yes,
experience into what it can become.
yes, because I think that due to the modern education system, we have a very preconceived notion that there are certain set hours for school. There are certain circumstances that learning should take place in, and homeschooling, basically takes that paradigm and shatters it because you are given flexibility for what works best for your family and for your family to learn. And I think my that would be my first piece of advice for a parent. Also, secondly, I think I would say, and you've already alluded to this, look at your surrounding community, and that does include your family, that includes individuals who perhaps are in your CC community or friends at church, and really evaluate, how can we make this happen? Are these individuals willing to be on our family's team, help accomplish this purpose, and really think outside the box? Because if you are going to be working, you know that your hours are set for work, or maybe they're not. Maybe you do have some flexibility. That is something in the modern world that we experience. Perhaps you have a remote work at home position, or maybe you have certain hours but they're not consistent. You're going to have to be a good planner and a good organizer and a really honest evaluator of yourself, of your capabilities, and also, like you said, of your children and what they're capable of and what can be accomplished when you are in eyesight, or what can you delegate safely and effectively to someone who's on your team to help you with. And I really appreciate the fact that you said on Community Day, it's really helpful for that person to be a family member. If you're not able to be there during the hours of Community Day, that individual needs to be someone who is in close relationship with your child so that they can not only communicate with your child, but they can also communicate back to you what happened during Community Day, so that the other days of the week, as you were spending time with your child, you're able to just pick up those threads, from Community Day, continue to weave the practice of memory work or the conversations surrounding literature or different strands that your challenge student is involved in. So I think that's exceptional advice. And I think the blessing is we live in a time where we have more flexibility than ever to be able to make homeschooling happen with our families. If we are creative, we think outside the box, and we rely on the team of individuals who are in our
Yeah,
community.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, Lisa, I'm looking at the clock. We have time for one more question. And this question, I think, is very honest and also slightly humorous. Any advice for first generation homeschoolers and first year of CC? And this is the honest part. I'm so scared of failing. Help.
Oh my word. Yes. How many of us have thought that when several people that I've talked to recently have said, "Oh, I always knew I wanted to homeschool." Even those people were a little worried when it push came to shove and it was time to start. Um, I think that most of us worry about any big commitment that we're making, especially if it's close to our heart. So think about this is your precious children that you love more than almost anyone. And this is their education we're talking about. If we didn't have a moment, not necessarily of fear, but of pause and quiet reflection and the thought that, oh, this is big. This is serious. I need to think it serious. I think we would be wrong. Um, okay, first gen homeschoolers. See, people aren't so much that anymore. But when I started, almost everybody was a first gen homeschooler. Nobody had done this before, and everybody's mama was looking at them cross eyed. I got a lot of side eye from my parents when we said we were going to homeschool. And so, if you're a first gen homeschooler, that means that the people in your family circle probably don't get it. They don't know why you would pick this. They can't articulate why this might be a good idea. They can't conceive of how you are equal to this task. And so you may not get a lot of, oh, you got it. You got this. It's going to be great. Because those people are worried that you don't got it and it's not going to be great because they don't understand it. So surround yourself with some people who have walked the path ahead of you, who can say, you can absolutely do this. I was on a call with somebody earlier today who said, all of us as parents taught our children to walk and to talk and to sit, most of us, to sit quietly at the table and to be kind and to answer the phone. Although today's teenagers have no idea how to answer a real telephone, but that's a different conversation. We have taught our children things. We do know how to motivate them and how to introduce ideas. So don't be afraid of failing. If the Lord has called you to this, you have what it takes. You will be given what it takes as that need arises. Okay. It's still going to be a walk by faith. But let me ask you this. Don't say, I'm so scared of failing. I want you to consider, what would success look like? Because maybe it's not what you think it is. That's what you need to determine. What first? Why am I doing this? Why do I feel called to this? Why is this the best option for my family? And run after those goals, not after what everybody else thinks school ought to be or what school looked like for you. Don't bring school home. It's not. You unchose that for a reason. You picked a different path. So don't bring all the schoolish ideas home with you. Determine, what would success look like if we love one another, if we spend time together, if we chase our curiosity, if we enjoy learning, and if we learn something every day. You mentioned that I got to help work on the Scribblers curriculum. We boiled it down to, at the end of a homeschool day, if you have read together, prayed together, played together, read together, served together, and explored together, then it's been a good day. If you decide what's important, you will set yourself up for success. Um, Realize that the most important thing about homeschooling is building the relationships. That first community that you have is your family. Build those relationships. Learn to love one another, respect one another, trust one another, be excited, celebrate one another, and recognize the gifts that each person in your family is bringing to this homeschool adventure that you're on together. Um, that's the advice I would have. Decide why you're doing this and where you're going, chart a path, and turn your back on the things that don't belong in that path. Turn your back on them and walk in the way that the Lord has put in front of you, gathering around you. First, your family is the community, and then the community of those who've decided to journey in your direction and walk along, bearing one another's burdens and picking up what falls behind. And some days it'll be you falling behind, and someday it'll be your friend. And we hold each other up. I used to say, as long as we don't all have a bad day on the same day, we can all keep going because we live a life of encouragement for one another. So I think that's what I would tell parents, and trust the simple system of building the skills of learning. Homeschooling doesn't have to be hard. And the good thing is that you don't have to know everything now. You're going to learn and relearn alongside of your children. So hopefully, if you have 7 and 8 year olds, you already right now do not know all the things you will know in 10 years when they're graduating, because you're going to learn alongside of them. Be glad and be grateful that the Lord has called you to the journey.
Mm, I love it. Such wise words. Well, Lisa,
Well,
thanks for going on the journey of answering these questions today.
absolutely.
And
Yes,
I
that's
know
been fun.
this will probably be the first of many Q&A sessions that are hosted on the Everyday Educator, and I hope we have the opportunity to do this again. Just
Oh,
what a
me
blessing.
too.
It is a blessing to be able to stand on your shoulders and for you to help us see farther because of the experiences that God has allowed you to have with your girls through classical conversations. And if you're listening to this podcast, our desire is that you take these words of wisdom and that you use them to be a blessing to your family. So this might be a wrap on today's Q&A, but it's our pleasure to say it's a joy to walk alongside a community that is curious, that is desiring to learn for a lifetime. So if today's episode encouraged or equipped you in any way, just we would love for you to share it with a friend or
Right.
leave a
Pass
comment
it
below.
on.
Absolutely. Remember, the heart of classical home education is not about checking boxes. So, even as we've answered these questions today, we've tried not to check boxes. We're hopeful that we will cultivate wisdom and virtue and wonder with you, and that you will, by extension, do that with your family and your community. Lisa, thanks again for being a guest when
Oh,
you're
I loved it. It was really fun. Amen and amen to all that you said, Kelli.
Well, until next time, listener, keep learning, keep loving, and keep leaning into the journey. And we'll
All
see
right.
you in the next episode.
Bye,
Goodbye.
y'all.